Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Patreon podcast. This is the final episode of the Patreon podcast, and if you've been following along with the last couple episodes, you kind of figured by now that I have kind of a point to all of this, where I'm just like, I think that this is good enough for this iteration of the podcast. Before I did this, I did the Creative Exploration series on YouTube, and before I did that, I actually wrote articles on like Tumblr. And, you know, I know that this whole project talking about creativity in different ways will probably be reincarnated in some other form at some point in the future, whether or not it's a co-podcast with like my buddy Shaka Panda, or if I just go back to making videos, or if I just feel the urge to make more creative content like this. I really think that, you know, this is a good stopping point for it. This is episode 208, which translates to 4 years of doing this. Like it got me through the pandemic. It got me through, you know, some pretty big moments in my life. And I really want to, you know, cap this off in a way that is organic and it has a stopping point. And it's not just like, okay, I'm bored with this, I'm going to move on now. Like I really want to you know, give it some kind of reverence. And, you know, the first episode of this Patreon podcast was called Starting. So I figured that it was only appropriate for me to call this one Finishing. Although, you know, I've already kind of talked about finishing projects in the last couple episodes. And I don't know, like, I just wanted to kind of riff for a little bit and talk. And there's a lot of changes happening over the next, couple months. I am stopping the podcast. I'm turning off the 2-hour track challenge and kind of reevaluating how I'm doing my streams from now on. And because of that, the knock-on effect is that it's going to kind of change how Patreon works too. And, you know, that's a conversation I'll get into in the future. It's not going to change a lot, but seeing as I don't have a guaranteed song every week, I have to go through and update my Patreon and make sure everything else is, you know, honest about that. I do plan on putting out like a lot of songs still. I'm not gonna stop that, but it's not like a guaranteed thing anymore, you know? Like I don't have a stream. I might do a stream where I learn how to do like 2-5-1, you know, chord progressions and like how to do key changes through that. And that might not yield a song. It might yield some ideas and maybe eventually a loop or something will come out of it. But I want to make sure that, you know, I'm honest about what people get out of the Patreon. And if I say a song a week, I want to mean a song a week. I haven't missed a week for Patreon. Some weeks have been a little rough around the edges where I'm kind of posting unreleased stuff or things that I've done in the past. Like right now I'm backlogging my November songs because November is going to be very busy for me. So yeah, like there's a lot of things changing, and you know that tends to make you feel wistful. And I don't really know what I can do for a retrospective on this. I think that I've been pretty forthcoming when it comes to how I feel about these types of projects, and it's just kind of come around to the point where I don't have much more I can add to it anymore. And I want to make sure that it goes out on a high note and doesn't just peter out because I run out of attention on it. And I don't know, because of that, like, I have so many ideas on here. Actually, you know what, you really know what, the next iteration of this is probably going to be a book of some sort where I have so many topics and I have so many things that I've talked about. It would be great to be able to like put those down in a book in a fashion that's not just me improvising words. Like all of these episodes are me just talking, you know, and that's great. I don't feel like I'm being like disingenuous on anything that I say, but like I am just sitting here and talking, and sometimes it ends up being kind of rambly. And I think having a book where, you know, every 3 pages is a different topic. And I've had ideas in the past about that, and I've started some things and I've tried some things, and I think that it would be good to be able to sit down and make like a 100-page book or something that just talks about different creative ideas and how to approach and execute them. And that might be the next logical step for me, because I really want to try writing. I've started the How to Write a Song in 2 Hours book, and I really want to finish that before the 2 Hour Track Challenge ends. But we'll see. It kind of depends on how the next couple months go for me. But yeah, like there's always new things. And that's kind of what I talked about in the last episode, right? Where it's just like all of these projects are ending, and that void is being filled with ideas for new projects. And I want to embrace those ideas, and I want to embrace the kind of chaos that ensues from having all of these nebulous ideas, and I can grab one and see if it works. And if it works, then it'll stick around. And I think that's really, really valuable. But yeah, I don't really know. I don't have much for takeaways from this. I know that some of the episodes were very short and some of them were very long. I feel like each episode at least had some kind of good focus and good ideas. And one of the things that I really liked about this series was the fact that I could have an idea, and then I could just turn on my microphone, or I could just turn on my phone and just record that thought. And that thought could then get, processed and scheduled and posted on Patreon. And, a handful of other people would be able to listen to it and hopefully get value out of it. Whether or not all of those thoughts were valid, valid's the wrong word, but any of those thoughts were like understandable. There were definitely some ideas where it's just like, oh, I listened to it again. It's like, that's kind of a weird one, but it's valid to have those ideas, and it's even more valid to share them. Because through that you get people who have different experiences and different ideas and different approaches to that kind of stuff. And I want to be transparent when it comes to being online. I want to be as clear as possible that being creative and making things and being prolific is not easy. There's a lot of joy in it, and sometimes it is easy, but it's not like every day you wake up and it's just like, okay, it's time to make another song. It's like sometimes there's friction. Sometimes there's a lot of friction. Sometimes other parts of your life get in the way. And, throughout the last 2 years of the Patreon podcast, that has happened a lot. And even with the last 8 years or 7 years of the 2 Hour Track Challenge, like life gets in the way, and it's really, really hard sometimes to find that balance to make everything work. But I'm very proud that I did. And I know the last couple months of the Patreon podcast, I've missed weeks, and that kind of bums me out. But if I didn't have ideas, I didn't want to force something out. And sometimes I had like 3 months of backlog scheduled because I had lots and lots of ideas, and I was able to just kind of sit down and jam out, 3 episodes a day, because they're only 5 to 10 minutes long. It's not that big of a deal. And then I just have this huge backlog, and I don't have to think about it for a while. And, I dump ideas on my Trello board, because for the last 2 episodes, all I have on like my notes in big quotes is like episode 206, only you know when it's done. That's literally all I had. And the rest of it was me just kind of taking that idea and running with it for, what I felt was an appropriate amount of time, just talking about that. And I know I end up talking in circles, and that's usually when I end up closing things up. But I'm really glad that I was able to go through this process and mark down, a lot of words. How long are all these episodes if you aggregate them together? I'm going to find that out while I keep talking. I really do like this format, but it just kind of wore me down eventually. So there is about 27 hours in total of me talking for the Patreon podcast, which is kind of wild. And I'm really glad that I did it. I was going to say it was a lot of work, but really it wasn't. It was a lot of effort, but for work, the process was pretty seamless. Like I said, I either had my phone or I am sitting at my computer, and the audio quality is a little better at my computer. But like I was able to just sit down and just jam these out and then move on with my day. And thankfully that wasn't that bad. And these are getting kind of pushed out to YouTube in like a year and a half later than it was posted in Patreon. So I have like a consistent update schedule there too for the next 2 or so years. So yeah, like I know that it generated a lot of capital C content, which I know is an important thing to do on the internet. But overall, I feel like I got some pretty significant enrichment out of it. I was able to have some fun conversations with people, and just try to learn more about how brains work when it comes to creative energy, because it's kind of a mystery to everybody, huh? Either way, that's pretty much all I have, I think. I really do appreciate this whole project. Yeah, I gotta wrap it up. My voice, I'm losing my voice. But I really do appreciate this project, and I really do appreciate everybody for supporting me on it. I do think that a book is next on my list. I've been reading the Derek Sivers books, like How to Live and Your Music and People, and they're fantastic books. And the way that they're written is they're very punchy and short. Like each chapter is two pages long at most. And it's like, this is the information. This is how I interpret it. I hope that you enjoy, reading this and interpreting it in your own way. Like it's all about hoping that you are engaged enough to get your own interpretation off of this. Like How to Live is a really fantastic book by him, for that reason. And I hope that, I don't know, it's worth checking out if you have the time. But yeah, I think that maybe once the dust settles from this and I start getting that urge to talk about this stuff again, I can maybe find my top 50 topics that I've talked about in the past, and I can maybe bundle them into a book or something. It'll be a good way for me to dip my toes into the water for that kind of, not even like publishing and getting it printed or anything, but just like posting it on Gumroad or like as a PDF. I think that's a good next step. So for the final time, thank you so much for being a Patreon supporter. I really, really do genuinely appreciate it. And thank you so much for listening for all of the episodes, or if you just kind of started midway and you're just kind of rolling through all that you've heard so far. Either way, I hope that you have a fantastic Friday and a wonderful weekend. And I don't know when I'll talk to you next. I hope that you catch me on stream whenever this comes out on YouTube. I hope I'm still streaming, but yeah, you can find me on twitch.tv/Ben_Burns. And that's pretty much it. I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your life. I'm like talking like this is like some big thing, but pretty much everybody who listens to these also is in connection with me at some other place in the internet. So I guess that's it. And that is a wrap on the Patreon podcast. Thank you so much. Again, I really do appreciate it. I'll talk to you wherever I see you. Be remarkable.